How's it going, everyone? It's Josh here. Today Brett and I are out in the woods. We're going to try to get a Bowdrill set together, see if we can get a fire going. Alright, we came across some aspen here. It's a nice soft wood and we found a dead standing one, so I'm going to go ahead and take a chunk out of that for the hearthboard and the spindle. All right, we found a really good walnut tree over here. We're gonna use that for our bearing block because it's a harder wood. All right, that's a good piece of walnut for the bearing block. You can see it's a black walnut. It's got a really dark heartwood, really pretty wood. We use this to carve spoons all the time. All right, we're actually gonna use the same tree that we used for the bearing block. This is walnut. We're gonna use this for the bow. So let me go ahead and cut a piece really quick. We want a nice long piece, generally from the armpit or the middle of the chest past the fingers. I'm gonna go ahead and cut a piece that's a little bit big and then we'll cut it down to size later. Let me just clear these branches off. All right, so when you're looking for wood for your Bowdrill set, with the spindle, earlier we got a piece of aspen. It's a softer wood. We've also used juniper, a couple other softer woods. Willow is good. Let me go ahead and put a list on the screen though for you guys, because you guys are gonna be all over the place watching this video. So if you wanna go ahead and pause the screen, I'll have a list of good woods really quick. All right, we got everything we need here to make a Bowdrill set. We got a piece of walnut for the bow, walnut for the bearing block, and aspen for the spindle and the hearthboard. We're gonna go ahead and find a more open area where it'll be easier for us to process this down into a Bowdrill set. All right, so got this piece of aspen cut down so that half of it can be used for the hearthboard and half of it can be used for the spindle. When I'm doing a spindle, I like to sort of stretch out my fingers, pinky to thumb, put it around that length, maybe a little bit longer, because you are gonna be chamfering the end, making them a little bit pointy, so it will take off some length while you're doing that. But it's a nice soft wood, so it should be fairly easy to carve. Gonna go ahead and start turning this into a spindle. And if you're ever using an axe to do this, keep your thumb and all your fingers out of the way. I like to just go like that. Keep my axe, I never swing up higher than the actual top of the piece, because then I have a chance of coming down to my fingers. I like to just keep it low like that. All right, this is the other piece of aspen. We cut off the other part for the spindle that Josh is carving. I'm gonna go ahead and split this just about in half, maybe not right down the middle. We'll go ahead and baton this with our bearing block wood right here. So we're just making a good flat surface to drill into. For really soft wood, it's easy to do this. I can tell this is going to be a really good set. So we got our top just about flat. I'm going to go ahead and flatten that out a little bit more, but another really important step is to get the back flat so that this doesn't roll off on us at all while we're spinning. Looks like it's soft enough just to do it by hand here. A little bit of a knot. Not a problem. That knot's not a problem. All right, this is starting to look good. I'm just gonna get this perfectly flat. Got a little bit more to do, but this is just about done. This is a quick piece to make if you got good soft wood. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this bow to length now. What I like to do with the length is extend my arm out all the way, then right where the stake hits my armpit right here is where I'm gonna cut it. That way I can get a full arm span length on this when I'm using the bow. So right about here is probably pretty good. All right, so we got this spindle pretty much finished up now. The basic shape, they say, go as thick as your thumb. So it's about the right thickness here. And they say, make it look like a pencil. One end is pointy, the other end is a little bit dull. I rounded off the back end a little bit, or I guess the bottom end. This is what's going to actually be drilling into the hearth board. That way it has good surface area, but it's not flat. It'll want to spin more. And on this spot, you don't want as much surface area touching the bearing block. You want as little friction as possible. So I made this pretty pointy, so only the tip is actually touching the bearing block, so there's not a lot of friction and heat up above. So this should work well for us. Again, it's about the length of my hand when fingers are expanded out, so it should work good. You can actually see in here right there, those little larva, like woodworm thing living in the wood there. So got him out of there. This wood is a little bit damp, but it should still work for us. I've done bow drills with wetter wood than this before. It's a bit of a challenge, but we've gotten it going. So should work good.
We're gonna go ahead and start with a little bit of an indentation in the wood. This is gonna kind of help our spindle guide and learn where the hole is gonna be, and we'll burn it in to make a bigger indent. But right now I'm just gonna go ahead and just move my knife around like this, make a little bit of a starter hole. I'm not going right in the middle of the board. I'm a little bit off to the side because this board's a little bit wide. We want to make sure this hole is next to the edge because once it's burnt in, we're going to go ahead and cut a notch, and you'll see why we need it towards the edge. We're going to have a lot of dust building up and pouring out of the side of this hole. So that looks pretty good to me. All right, really quickly, I'm going to do the same thing on this bearing block that I just did to the hearth board. I'm just going to start a little indentation. That way the spindle has a place to kind of seat into. That way it's not flipping out at all. We're not going to lose our set. I split this black walnut down a little bit just so we can barely see this heartwood. That way it's a little bit more of a dense wood than the sapwood, so it'll be a little bit harder, which is what we want. And we got the softwood on the bottom. Looks like we're all ready to go. We just gotta go ahead and string this bow up really quick.
All right, so we got our bow strung up. This is a little bit shorter than we normally would go, but just for demonstration purposes, this should work just fine, and just for one fire. So the way that I strung this up was a bit of a slip knot in a notch on this side. Then on this side, I just kind of lashed it a bunch and did some half hitches. And you can see I tied it kind of loose. A lot of people try to go really tight with their bows. But what we found is the tighter you go, the better it'll grip the spindle, but it will want to flip out easier and you'll lose your mind. So what I like to do is get a pretty loose string, something that'll still give it grip, and then I actually rub some beeswax on it, and that'll give it some more grip on the spindle. See there, we just got a chunk of beeswax from the hardware store. It's what we use on a lot of our knife handles and axe handles, but it works well for this as well. Alright, it's loaded on there good. That's nice and sticky, so that'll give it a good grip on the spindle. So, gonna go ahead and get this strung up and burn in the hole.
Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and make our tinder bundle. There's being in kind of a prairie over here, we are in the prairie state, so there's a ton of grass. And for our really good dry tinder, we're gonna go ahead and use aspen shavings. We just got a whole ton of shavings with the spine of our knife. So really quickly, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this over and kind of make it into a bird's nest formation. This grass is still green, and that's okay. This isn't really gonna be what's igniting. We're just gonna be using this to hold our tinder bundle in place. So we'll go ahead and put some drier grass in here. Kind of keep that bird's nest shape. Sometimes I twist this handle a little bit. That way it doesn't fall apart as easy. So we'll go ahead and get our bird's nest going. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put my dry material on the inside. That way we have a safe place to put our ember, somewhere it's not gonna fall out of. And then I like to put a little bit of an indent in here. And you'll see when we dump the ember later, I like to kind of pour a little or push a little bit over on top of it, so I keep a pile in the back a little bit. That's just something I like to do. All right, so we got our tinder bundle. We'll set this aside, keep it safe, and then we'll go ahead and start our bow drill.
All right, so we're getting ready to burn the hole in here, and before we do, I wanted to talk about different bearing blocks. Now, This is the bearing block we're using. It's a chunk of walnut. We put a hole in the heartwood so it'll be nice and hard, but there's still friction there. So I recommend to beginners, and just if you want to bust out a bunch of practice without getting exhausted, using a wheel or a bearing. There's a bearing on the inside of this wheel that spins with little to no friction. So if you get the top of your spindle and use this as a bearing block, it'll spin freely and it'll give you a lot less friction and save you a lot of energy when you're trying to do a bow drill. For today, we're going to use the walnut that we gathered, but that's something to keep in mind if you're trying to get into friction fire. So we're going to go ahead and pop this spindle in here. Take it easy at first. Just want to get it shaped together. When you start seeing smoke, you're going to want to go for another couple seconds, then you should be good on the burn in. Seeing a little bit of smoke here. So I'm going to have to take my saw and cut in the notch. This is where the dust will collect. Alright, so cut the big stuff out with a saw and then clean it up with your knife. On the bottom here, I like to cut out the sides a little bit, give some more room for airflow. Alright, here we go again. Getting a lot of smoke. Seeing that dust build up. In a second here, I'm going to have Brad hop on. Just because there's two of us here, we might as well use teamwork on this. Alright, you want to jump on here? Yeah. Seeing a lot of smoke here. Seeing the dust build up a lot. Gonna go a little bit faster here. Try to secure that ember, make sure it gets hot enough. And slowly lift up. There's a big thing, just lift straight up on here. We definitely have an ember going here. I'm gonna protect it from the wind while Brad gets the tinder ready. Now we've been doing a couple on this board so far. I got the last one going. I'll let him do this one. Biggest thing is give it time to grow, because right off the bat, it's going to take a little bit to actually build an ember in there. Right now, it's really small. Once it gets bigger, it's a little bit more safe to move it around. So just fan it a little bit, make sure you don't bump it. Then once you start seeing that red spread a little bit more, usually it's safe to move it. Just scoop it up with this other set. Aspen shavings. Then what Brad likes to do is sort of sprinkle the shavings over the top of the ember. That way it's fully engulfed here. And I'm mic'd up here, so I'm going to be kind of talking over this. You just, at first they say to blow it like you're trying to blow a candle without actually blowing it out. And then once you start seeing more and more smoke, you blow harder and harder until eventually you'll achieve flame. Now we're not actually making a fire here today, so we're going to stomp it out once we see flame. There you go. Now if you want to get this going, you just turn it on itself and the fire will spread up through, but try not to burn the forest down here. Stomp it out. So that was a Bowdrill fire. It's fairly easy to do once you sort of get the hang of it and learn how to use the different materials together. But if you want to learn more about specifics on the Bowdrill. We're going to be doing a video that should be up in a week or so here, of going over more details on why you might not be getting the fire going. Because when we were first learning a long time ago, we weren't getting it going, and we couldn't figure out why we weren't getting it going. And it would be really helpful to have a video like that. So we're going to do a video in a little bit here talking about the major reasons why you might not be getting a Bowdrill. But I'm Josh, Brad's behind the camera here. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you next time.
All right, come on.